grew up in Tallinn, but I was actually living in Florida. I was a student in Jacksonville, Florida, and I had just gotten saved, and God had given me many visions. And he gave me a picture in this vision of a church, and what I call it was a cool church. There was excitement and dancing and singing, and I had never seen that before. I'd never been in a church like that. It was for Tallinn. I was down in Florida, but it was for Tallinn. Immediately I started praying for this church, and I never even prayed before, but I just felt like I had to pray for this church. So I came back after school was out, I came back to Tallinn looking for this church. I found some nice churches, but I didn't find this church. And so I ended up moving away from Tallinn for years and prayed for this cool church for years and years. Came back in 1996 to live in Tallinn, Connecticut. And then about the summer of 1998, I was in an intercessory group, and I met this lady named Jamie. And I thought she was really cool. She liked to pray, and she prayed some really, cool ways. And I was really excited to get to know her, but I never saw her again. So several months later, I kept getting this impression, I've got to call this Jamie lady. I got to pray with her. I didn't know about what. I just needed to pray with this Jamie lady. And so I asked my friend that had invited Jamie to the prayer meeting for her number. And of course, I put it off because I thought Jamie would think I was crazy, thinking, oh, I feel like praying with you. I don't know about what, but I just feel like I need to pray with you about something. Of course, a little bit of time goes by, and I still have her number, and I never called her. And one day I'm looking in the newspaper, I open up this full-page ad, and there it says, opening a church in Tallinn, Connecticut, and Jamie and Jerry LaFawn, and the telephone number. I didn't know Jamie's name, but I remembered the telephone number. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is it. I was supposed to pray with her. So I call her up immediately, and she says, come on over to my house next week, we'll pray before our first Bible study. One of the words that I had gotten that day was calling out to the dry bones, that they would come to life. And I felt like I was praying that over Tallinn. I wanted to open the window and scream out. I think it was the same day. We had the first Bible study at the LaFawn's house. And Pastor Jerry was explaining his vision. And immediately the Spirit of God just engulfed me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the vision I had in 1983. This is the church, this is the church. And he shared a scripture that God had shared with him. And it was about crying out to the dry bones in this area, and that they would come to life.
And my late husband, Jerry, and I began this church in 1999 in our home in Tallinn. One day, I was sitting at my kitchen table. The presence of the Lord just really rested upon me. It was so strong, I grabbed my pencil and my paper, and I just began to write what I believe the Lord was saying to me at that moment. He said, increase is coming. Enlarge the border. Make ready. I'm pouring out my Spirit upon this generation. Multitudes are in the valley of decision. I have the plans for this generation, and it is my desire that you would have them. Seek my face. Get ready, prepare your heart to seek me. The harvest is ripe, the laborers are few. Pray for the Lord of the harvest to send laborers. Well, shortly after that, a few months later, Pastor Jerry passed away suddenly. It was such a shock and just threw everything up in the air. But what always spoke to my heart was what God gave me the months before. And it just always encouraged me that God was not finished with his mission here in Tallinn County. I believe we're coming into that next great season of increase. I believe God is about to pour out his Spirit again upon us for the greatest sweep of souls that we've seen. A couple of months back, while praying for Sunday school, I was reading Nehemiah and how the wall of the city was broken down. Nehemiah prayed and sought God to take up the mission of rebuilding. I feel like that's the mission God's called us to, is to rebuild a community, make one that looks like heaven on earth, and rebuild and reach out into a community. So the similarities of the story really grabbed my heart. This was Nehemiah's 20th year when he began the rebuild. And God spoke to me. This is your 20th year. This is River of Life's 20th year. And I was so excited. It just really spoke to my heart once again that we are right where we need to be. And I'm so excited to celebrate and be part of this, and also for all of you to be part of this.
It was back in 2017 when I came out here to the Willimantic River, and I sat here in this very spot to seek the Lord and to pray. And the Lord started speaking to me about transition. He had brought me to Joshua chapters 3 and 4, where the Israelites crossed over the River Jordan into the Promised Land. And the Lord was speaking to me in particular about the promises that He has for the River of Life. First thing He said was to remember the promises that I've already spoken to you. We went back over our prophetic words, and there were a few recent ones that really stood out to us. We were planning a trip to go back to Ghana. We had gone to Ghana in 2016 to help with the building project for Love a Lot Children's Home. But the Lord spoke to us and said, hey, if you'll take care of my kids' house, I'll take care of your house. And so we made a decision at that time not to go back to Ghana, but to raise funds and to take the money we would have spent getting to Ghana and really support the kids' building project for their new home. And then they were able to move into their home in the fall of 2017. Tom Hardiman, who was from Morning Star Ministries, spoke a prophetic word over our church, which was basically something like this: all aboard, all aboard. The train is coming into its station. It's no longer safe to remain on the observation deck. Please take your seat of assignment. And so we took some time to think about that, and then another word came along. I felt the Lord asked me to open the service by speaking in tongues, and the interpretation that came out of that was actually really cool. It's time, it's time, it's time to lay aside all those things that are not of me. Too long, too long, too long, you have focused on other things, some very good things, and some even kingdom things, but they were not me. Do you not know that my word is true? Seek me first, and all of these things will be added unto you. And both this word and the word from Tom Hardiman came around October of 2016. The Lord was also speaking about some of the parallels between the Israelites crossing the River Jordan and where we were at our stage of church life. The Lord highlighted, hey, this took a miracle for the nation of Israel to cross the River Jordan. And the people had to step into the water before the water receded. And I felt like the Lord was saying, we really need to step into the miracle that God has for us. We can't just wait for the miracle to happen. We got to step into it. And so that was one of the other reasons why we said, we're really going to step into this seat of assignment, and we're going to step into prayer. We're going to step into this corporate gathering, seeking His face. God just began to open up miracle after miracle after miracle with our new building. The other thing that God spoke that day was that, hey, be prepared to be in a long transition. Consider 2 years. You'll know when this time of transition is over because you'll mark it with a ceremony. You'll mark it as a milestone in the life of the church. Wouldn't you know it, now we are having a 20-year celebration, marking the 20th anniversary of our church. And it's amazing to me how God has put all these pieces together, the prophetic words that He's spoken to us, the miracles that He's done. It's truly remarkable what God has done up to this point. So that just tells me that what God has planned for us in the future is truly amazing.
Well, our family joined the River family about 18 years ago, and of course so much has happened in that time, and we have so many memories, some really good memories, salvations and baptisms and marriages and baby dedications and healings, and we've seen your generosity to this community. We've seen your generosity to the orphan kids in Ghana, and of course we also carry some sad memories of those that we've lost in the family who have gone into glory before us. And through it all, we're just so thankful that God has sustained us and kept us and strengthened us through this. The Lord has really formed a church family that worships together and prays together and learns together and encourages each other to run the race that God has set before us. And as awesome as these last 20 years have been, the future is brighter.
Yeah, we're excited.
And we're excited for the new season that God is bringing us into. Our race has not finished yet. We have a lot more to do together for the Lord and for the sake of the gospel in this new season. And we want to celebrate in advance God's goodness and faithfulness that will continue with us and includes us in this next season.
Yeah, we're also excited because we've heard so many prophetic words about the church being a training center, and that God is going to bring people from all over so they can be trained and equipped to go out, not necessarily just come to the church and stay, but actually to come and be trained and go out and touch other people throughout. And we're just really excited to see that God is stirring up in our hearts for a revival, an awakening. God gave the church a few years ago Isaiah 60 and 61, and I just wanted to share, he says, in 61, the Spirit of the Lord is upon the river and Connecticut. It's not just the river. As much as we enjoy talking about our family, we're also part of a larger family, so it's for the whole body. So we really feel that there's a revival coming to New England, and he's given us a piece of it. And he says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon his church, because the Lord has anointed his church to bring good news to the afflicted. He has sent us to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and freedom to prisoners, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and to grant those who mourn in Zion, giving them a garland of praise instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, and the mantle of praise instead of a spirit of fainting. And we feel that's one of the things that God has given us as a family, is that we want to reach out to the community. We don't want just to grow because we want to grow. We want to grow because we want to see that God is moving and stirring people's hearts, and he's bringing people in. The lost people of our family are being brought in. And it's exciting that he's actually encouraged us to join him in this, that we actually get to be part of God's hands, bringing in the lost and bringing in those who don't know him. So it's really exciting now that we actually can participate in what he's doing with us, through us, and we get to enjoy the fruit of it.
As we're getting ready to transition into new facilities, we're taking some time to pause and to reflect and to celebrate these past 20 years. And it's actually quite interesting how often the Lord actually instructs his people to do just that, to take some moment and to celebrate and to reflect on where we've come from. And it's a time to remember the goodness of God and the faithfulness of God, and to celebrate what he's done. And it's always done in a way that's meant to put our focus on the future. We are actually going somewhere. Every time we celebrate now, in a sense, we're playing out the celebration that we will all do together one day when God kind of brings this project to its final conclusion. And when we do it today, we're kind of connecting the past and the present and the future. And so that's one of the reasons why this is so important to do. As we get ready to step into a new season with the Lord, we're going to take some time. We're going to do it today in our service and in this season. Let's really just reflect and give thanks. God is amazing. He's done so many amazing things in our midst, and every single sign and wonder that God has done is a pointer to the incredible signs and wonders that are yet in our future and will one day celebrate all together as his kingdom comes.